David Lynch brings his perfect blend of art and soul to this heartbreaking movie of John Merrick. This is The Elephant Man.
It's so heartwarming seeing him develop, people giving him the time, and appreciate what you said before about it's a different kind of freak show, but it doesn't. It becomes genuine. We accept you. Here's a box of male grooming products in a silver container. Welcome to society in the real world. And he's so happy and he's so chuffed.
A film that people should watch because it says a lot about humanity. It says a lot about the morality of things. It says a lot about alienation and like the way people should act with other people and the right and the wrong ways that this happens. And it also says that this is the way humans are. This is how humans are, and you have to accept that. There is good as well as bad. There is light as well as dark.
Welcome, listeners, as I drive down this dark, diverse highway and pause to pick up John Aitken and Bob Fleming from Prog to Who. Trek this out and take your seats. We are on a journey of discovery into the imagery and mastery of Lynchian landscapes, the efflux of stories interwoven in a tapestry of films. This is The Lynch Mob. And welcome, listeners, to another Lynch Mob, and this time we're going to look at The Elephant Man.
He's the greatest freak in the world.
Are you in any pain? Are your parents still alive?
Life is full of surprises.
Am I a good man? Or am I a bad man?
I am not an animal. I am a human being.
Alright, so it's The Elephant Man.
Yeah.
1980 it came out on a small budget, 5 million, and over the box office just over 26 million. So David Lynch, it was his first major film after Eraserhead.
Yeah. It was Mel Brooks, wasn't it, that basically brought him in. There's a good story. There's a nice little story he does where he says how he was trying to get Ronnie Rocket made, which was his own film, which I don't know what that was about. But he wasn't getting any traction on it, so he thought, well, I might have to just direct somebody else's script. And so it went roundabout, and eventually it went to Mel Brooks, who went and watched Eraserhead and thought it was the best thing ever, and offered him the job. So yeah, it was
Which is fabulous, really, because you won't put Mel Brooks even connected with something like this, would you?
Well, he made sure his name wasn't linked to it at all, because didn't want people thinking it was a comedy. And let's be fair, it's not the funniest film in the world.
No. Because you have to also think on the production side, this is a young director. He's only done one film, an art house film, really only shown on midnight showings, and that's where people like John Waters and that give him a helping hand to get into the cinemas. And then all of a sudden, he's been thrown over to the UK and has to work with some amazing actors, tried and tested actors, and use the facilities over there. So there's a few people who said when they worked with him, he was quite obtuse or quite over quiet. But really, it was his shyness.
Yeah, well, he was a young man trying to get forward, but you can see, or at least he tells stories about how he, the work he put in, and it took him about a year to film the thing over in England.
Yeah.
And he was just a little bit out of his depth, he thought, but he wasn't.
No,
the film doesn't show any of that.
I mean, the story. I mean, I was just watching a bit of an extra of I can't remember his name, but the director of photography.
Yeah.
He tells a really positive tale of Lynch coming on board. And just saying how much of a nice guy he was. he didn't feel like a new director. He had support and all that kind of thing. You know, he said like, you know, it was, you know, he was very complimentary of him basically.
Yeah.
As a person.
I think the crew certainly, but I think the main actors might have intimidated him somewhat, having Anthony Hopkins in it and a slew of really big actors that were in this, like Boone and everybody, you know.
Yeah. you got John Gielgud, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
it's huge.
There's nobody bigger in terms of like thespian names, is there?
No.
Who's John Gielgud?
Fucking hell.
Well, is it Sir John Gielgud? What's it? Well, he was huge British actor at the from probably all the way from the 1940s all the way up well into the 80s. He did Arthur as well, which is a brilliant film. But he plays more or less his same part in the films he did in later life. He was always the tough. But in his early life, he did all the Shakespearean stuff. He was there with like Laurence Olivier and all that type of stuff.
Which one was he in it?
Dr. Carden, the administrator of the hospital.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. He was cool. He was really good actually. Yeah.
He didn't start off well though, because when I first saw him and when he first interacted with the Doctor, I did think that like, he's bound to be a bastard, this fella. But he didn't turn out that way, did he?
Oh, he was great. He was really good. I mean, there was plenty of bastards in this film, like that's for sure. But it's
just like in real life, Bob. Just like in real life. Yeah.
It was haunted. I watched it a couple of weeks ago. I treated myself to a 4K on big telly. Just rented it off Amazon Prime, and I didn't know what to expect. I've never seen it before, but I've seen bits of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I always thought it was, obviously the way it's made, it doesn't look like a 1980s film, does it?
No.
It looks like an old film, but not in a bad way. It's a beautiful film. It's miles better to be in the way it's done in black and white. But yeah, just awesome. I was a bit blown away by it. I didn't know what to expect. A bit of a slow starter, but as soon as it grips you, you know it's got you, hasn't it? And then. And I was like sort of looking at Anthony Hopkins with a critical eye, you know, from what we've said before, that he was not fully on board. It doesn't matter. He's just fucking class, isn't he?
He's a pro, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's just stellar.
You can tell that he holds his content, you know what I mean? If he was pissed off with anyone, he knows he's there to do a job, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
So he just does it. He just does it right.
But he was great. And I watched it yesterday for a second time. And I got so angry. Like, not at the film, obviously, but at just how relevant it is, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Even now, so it's set in Victorian times, and it's just basically about building someone up, you know, and then fucking knocking them down, and that's never changed.
No,
and that's something that is probably, you know, it felt quite instantaneous, but obviously with social media and everything like that, it's a lot more instantaneous, and it kind of just it just sort of made me a bit like, God, people are fucking horrible. Not everyone, obviously, but a lot of people are, and a lot of people are like that, and they still like that.
I think when I first watched it, going back to 18, I remember watching it in Pendleton College, Salford,
Wow.
Salford, massive, and I remember at the time, you know, you're looking into the arty-farty side of it, and what was the reason it was black and white? You know, you can see that he's done it in a way like, I thought there's a few different ways we could look at it. Number one is black and white, budget reasons. Number two is he's harping on to those old 1940s film, like you brought up, Bob, to give that feel of a stage production as well, very much like a stage production, the way each bit's cast as well. And also, I thought on another view is life isn't just black and white. He's always mentioned this as well. There's a few quotes of David Lynch going on that life isn't just black and white. It's the greyness, you know. It's that middle bit. And I think in this, it shows it really well, where at first he was getting abused but treated as a freak. But then he was getting looked after and also treated as a society piece of people with money to come and have a look at him. So he was still treated very much... not in essence of his ill-mannered or ill way like he was before, but he was still used in that point. and it took a while for Anthony Hopkins' character to sort of stand back and go, "Am I the same as what I'm doing?" You know what I mean? It really questions the morality of both of them.
I think it's obviously, like you're saying, the Doctor, Anthony Hopkins' character does treat him really well, but he's there, as this, brand new thing, if you know what I mean, for him to show off at the science place and all that.
Yeah.
And I think the prime bit is the continuation of it is the head nurse, the older lady.
Yeah.
And a lot of the group of nurses have such disdain for him, because he's a freak. But their love or like or whatever is so genuine.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Because they go particularly the head lady, the head nurse. She really does become like very protective of him, and all that kind of thing. And the lady from the opera, whatever, the famous lady that reads his story. Yeah, and she's very much like, it's intriguing for her, but she's not doing it with any sort of freakish or malice. Yeah. She's just genuine. She's like surprised. To me, she seems surprised that she's found a genuinely interesting person.
Yeah,
in what rather than the sort of socialite bollocks at the time. And that's what I love. It's just these people coming together in a different way. But I know what you mean about the concept of just because he's treated nice, he's still treated like a freak.
Yeah.
Prime example, like I said, Anthony Hopkins showing him off, pointing sticks at him to his mates and that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of different things on that, isn't there? Because when he's being treated as a freak initially by the paying punters at the freak show at the carnival, he's been treated like an animal. He's been looked at as if he is an animal.
Yeah.
And when he's in the hospital and he's socialising and he's got well-to-do people coming, he's then being shown off not as an animal but as a human, but an animal with like sensibilities and social graces, and that in itself is so they're looking at him with different eyes, but the same result is that he's just something of an object of interest to these people, whether it's well-to-do people, whether it's the poor people. And this goes to the heart of what Lynch is all about as well. Like you're saying, it is about duality. It's about being seen as both an animal and human. Yeah. And the fact that humans can be both cruel and kind, because we get both of those. We get ignorant people treating him kindly. We get stupid people treating him treating him badly. But also we get intelligent people who should know better, thinking of him as an animal. Just like we get well-to-do people treating him well, like the Doctor. And because of this, I think it's essentially John Merrick's, well, I think he's called Joseph Merrick, isn't he?
Joseph Merrick, yeah.
His essential problem is that while he was being ogled in the carnival as a sort of like freakish, animalish creature, he was in a dark place in his life then, and he'd never seen light. Obviously, clearly in his life, he won't have seen any light. He will have got small kindnesses perhaps, but the majority of it is just being treated as this horrible thing to look at. But then when he finds, I don't want to skip right to the end, but he gets treated with kindness and love, and then he realises then that is possible in his life, which makes the descent back into darkness all the more horrifying for the fact that he now knows what it could be like.
Yeah.
And that is I mean, I just want to look at the sort of Lynchian director bits, if that makes sense.
Yeah, brilliant.
Because there's a few, like, don't get me wrong, the direction on this is beautiful. It looks great, and the shadows, the lighting, it does look great. But it's just a great looking film. The Lynchian stuff for me is like the bit at the beginning when and it's the eyes. It starts with the lady's eyes, and then it goes out to being a photo, and then you have all this crazy elephantness and all that. And I didn't really get what was going on at that bit, until it gets explained later on. But there's just a couple of bits of that, which are like, the trippy scene at the opera at the end. That's what you'd maybe class as Lynchian, because it does stir a lot of plot, emotion, something, a journey. Yeah. Just with the way it's cut, the way it's layered and all that kind of thing. And then there's another bit with the elephant, the elephants and all that. It's but it's basically the trippy, dreamy bits. That's
Yeah.
the very Lynchian. bits.
Apparently, that was he was asked to cut them out, but he didn't want to cut them out, and Mel Brooks told him to leave it in as it is because that's his way. But the other parts of which I found really Lynchian is he fucking loves Victorian mills and the fact that all the pipes and the soundscaping. The soundscaping was fucking amazing, wasn't it? That's that's Lynch. It's a constant in the background because at that time in Victorian times, especially Manchester, especially London, especially places with large amount of mills, is the total greyness, which might be no reason for black and white, is just grey. If you look at the pictures of the time, the LS Lowry, filling the streets with the smoke, the sound of the constant mills, and it works perfectly. It's like he's done an amazing amount of study on it to bring it in.
I mean, I think those scenes of pipes, the scenes of industry, the scenes of the mills, they're all telling us, in Lynch's own way, a thing that he's been telling us in quite a lot of his films, and there's that. The creeping modernity, the homogenization of people into the cities and becoming just another one of the people that work in a factory, and that is something that is breaking the spirit of people, and that is something that's important as well. That's why I think he interspersed a lot of these images between the scenes.
Yeah, and did you also find as well there was a few. Not characters or specific cast, but he used people around in sets. Like there's a brilliant scene when Anthony Hopkins' doctor gets to the hospital early, and there's a little discussion with the milkman. And then there's a few other scenes like that where it was just random people in the background suddenly become part of the film, which we've seen in his future stuff, where it's just little. You're thinking, what's that there for? And it's just like, well, this is just day-to-day life.
Yeah, little niceties as well, just pleasantries, things like that. I mean, there's some gritty stuff in this. Obviously, just from the get-go, like it's just this is a bit horrible. You know what I mean? When he's going around the freak show, then it's kind of like a bit of a relief when he gets, the Elephant Man into his bits and that, but like when the owner, and that's kind of what he is, he's like a slave, isn't he? The owner, because he's come from wherever
he's being seen as an animal, isn't he? So property.
And there's that little kid who continues
Dexter
throughout.
Fletcher.
Jesus, he was in everything in the 80s, wasn't he?
Wasn't he just? Fucking hell.
But he was great because at first he was a bit numb to the violence that he was putting on. The Elephant Man, and then obviously as the film goes on, he seems to not see how wrong it is, and how wrong I want to call him Fagin. He's a bit like Fagin.
Yeah, he is. That's a brilliant analogy.
Horrible bastard. But it's just it's so heartwarming seeing him develop, people giving him the time, and appreciate what you said before about. It's a different kind of freak show, but it doesn't. It becomes genuine. We accept you. Here's a box of male grooming products in a silver container. Welcome to society in the real world. And he's so happy and he's so chuffed.
Yeah.
And fucking Ken Boone. What a bastard.
Michael Elphick is this role for him is perfect. He just
it's class.
Perfectly epitomises the kind of opportunistic. He doesn't give a shit about anybody but him and his friends, and he sees John Merrick as a commodity, just like his owner, the guy at the carnival does. And that's why, I mean, when you bring all these people along, people like Pauline Quirk, to look at to sort of ogle him on the night shift when the doctor's not there. So John Merrick is still having to suffer the dark stuff all the way through, and yet when in the morning, he's having to be the different person who's a socialite kind of thing.
Yeah.
And John Hurt portrays this character perfectly. He's seen as vulnerable in his voice. You don't really see John Hurt, but in all his movement,
movement, yeah.
Everything about him is like you can understand the feelings of pity. I mean, when Dr. Treves goes to see him for the very first time at the carnival, and for a good 15 minutes of the film, we don't see John Merrick. We just see other people's reactions to him.
Yeah.
And when Dr. Treves goes to see him and he just stares, and it's a beautiful picture of Anthony Hopkins just staring and a tear rolling down his face. That is what we are feeling watching the film. We'll go through that. But other people will watch this film and go, oh, it's gross, and just like revel at that. But like I said, there's about 15 minutes of the film where nothing particularly is shown. We see him in silhouette. We see him with a bag over his head.
It's it's great.
Yeah,
it's
anticipation. But that's a sad thing that we anticipate seeing that grotesquerie. And the fact that we anticipate it makes us as well culpable in this sort of... There's a morality question all the way through. Everybody's been given the opportunity to be morally correct. You're being given the opportunity as a viewer. But you'll see all the way through it. I mean, Dr. Treves epitomizes it when he starts to question whether he's done the right thing. He went at it with a completely. It was a good moral position for him to take, to have pity, to want to help, and all that thing. But that help and doing all that has turned into exploitation once again, but this time by the different classes.
Yeah.
And there's a morality question for everybody that interacts with Merrick, faces that morality question of why are we even looking? What is it about this and things being different and people being different that makes us sort of like it's like car crashes. You just want to look, and you know you shouldn't fucking look, because why would you want to?
But there's a part within this film. There's two parts where I thought they're trying to show Anthony Hopkins' character the same as the Carnival Man. There's a part right at the beginning where he seems to have an agreement with the Carnival Man. He's obviously paid him some money to bring him to his place, and the Carnival grabs him and says, "I understand you. You understand me. We're together. We're one, me and you." And then you're thinking, "Oh, heck, you know what I mean? He's the good guy." But then afterwards, there's a brilliant bit where the camera pulls away and it's showing all the little trinkets and all the little pictures along his in his room and on the table, and he picks up something else what he's just been given, and it's sort of saying they're doing the same. They're giving him trinkets, paying the Elephant Man, but before it was paying the Cannibal Man. It's trying to connect him at those 2 points as well. Oh, one big thing was they was going to use Dustin Hoffman to be the Elephant Man.
I don't think it matters who it would have been as long as it was a good actor, because you don't see the face.
Apparently,
I think John Hurt was perfect for it, in my opinion.
John Hurt, it was amazing.
I couldn't understand, like, a lot of time, I couldn't, maybe say 25% of the time, I couldn't understand the word he was saying. Because one thing I did notice about the sound on this was it was very, in the dramatic bits, it was very loud. And during the dialogue and the speech, it was relatively quiet, and it was quite difficult to, and I appreciate it's meant to be like that.
Yeah.
But it was quite difficult to understand him sometimes. But yeah, like I said, it's probably meant to be like that.
When he did speak as well, it was, I think, the fact that they had him speaking very gentle, very quiet, like very, slow in particular. It's also another thing which you wouldn't expect. You was probably expecting, gruff or an angry voice or something. And at every point when he goes to see the doctor's wife and stuff, the way he speaks is so gentle, like a child, isn't it? That's probably another thing to show the comparison of what you would expect to be, this like big ugly mess, and then what comes out is his gentleness. It's the inner person within him. Because
why would anybody that has been abused their entire life ever want to speak sort of aggressively or stridently in any way? The way he's speaking, I imagine, is because all his life he's been having to be the victim all his life.
Yeah,
and he can't upset people. People would just abuse him constantly. He was getting whipped and flogged.
Yeah.
He could understand how he would just be mentally fucking crushed.
Yeah.
By the fact that he's become an adult.
Also physically, I don't mean the looks, but the sort of disability, if you like, of whatever's wrong with him. The fact he can't walk, and massive, lumps or whatever, and but yeah, he's hindered in all way, shapes, and forms.
Yeah.
He's been beaten, he's been treated like shit. Then he gets an opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, and it's a beautiful, interesting way. And it does feel like a real development, not just a sort of film.
Yeah.
Or, obviously I know it's based on a true story, but it's just.
I think.
I mean, I just want to get to the bit that makes me so angry and really upset is when Boone gets them people, to pay to go and see him.
Yeah.
Late at night when he's just literally he's just been accepted, basically. He's buzzing, he's happy. It's like so nice.
First time in his life as well.
Yeah, and it's so horrible. Like the way it's sort of shot, directed, it's fucking disgusting. Because you've got the guy with Pauline Quirk and the other girl.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's obviously been there before with other girls or ladies of the night, whatever it is. And he's obviously sinister, seedy, fucking horrible cunt. And in the way he's just like getting off on it, and then he's trying to get them off on it, and all that, and then they're pouring the whatever liquid it is,
whiskey or
the
something,
booze, and just it's not just like bullying; it's complete humiliation and devastation.
Well,
and then he gets fucking taken.
The sad thing about that is that Boone, and we're going to call him Boone, he's the night porter, but yeah, Boone thinks he's doing him a favour. He thinks like, look, we're getting people, you're getting share things, you're giving him money, and it's the complete man's inhumanity to man that we're seeing, and it's like, as you say, that scene is revolting on a number of levels.
Awful. It's distressing. It really is.
If only because it's the depth from which he's fallen. Because for the first time in his life, he's got love. He's got people he genuinely thinks care for him.
Yeah.
And he won't have experienced that since his mother.
Yeah.
And then he's just getting, it just gets dropped back to the sort of base level again.
It's the slow build up though as well. The way it's developed, it's really clever. And then that bit's just so quick. It just goes to Boone in the fucking pub.
Yeah.
Going around with that, going, give me some money, da, da, da. And then obviously Fagin comes up again, his old keeper.
Yeah.
How much and whatever. And then after this horrendous scene, and it is genuinely distressing after you've just gone, oh, brilliant, this is ace, it's nice, feel good, interesting. And then he's taken and he's back to square one, but even worse. And he's missing and all that. It's just fucking awful. And it just made me so angry. I wish I could have gone in that room and just kicked the shit out of everyone in that room.
There's a brilliant part straight after that of Anthony Hopkins, and it shows, I think, his acting prowess, where throughout the film it's been quite mild-mannered, held back. And at that point, when he confronts Boone, you see a great acting there when he's just totally distressed, and he shows at that point, and he starts shouting at him as well. So there's that bit. And also, I wanted to say as well is, again, like John says, at that point he felt the love, and then he's been brought back down to zero. Well, John Gielgud says a brilliant line when he's watching him getting into the carriage going away. I think it's one of his first or second visit, and he says, I hope he's sick. I hope to God he's simple-minded for what he's been through. And knowing that he's intelligent makes it... I know it's either way is worse, but knowing that he's intelligent, he realises how much he's lost, how much he's gained, which is so distressing, isn't it?
So it's awful. I mean, when the little dwarves and all that were free him, the dwarf in it, he's famous, wasn't it? When he R2-D2 or something.
He's also out of Time Bandits.
Oh yeah, he did them all. He did them all back in there, didn't he? He was always in dwarves.
Yeah.
Time Bandits. No, but he was. He's a famous dwarf, wasn't he?
Yeah.
What's he called? Kenny Rogers.
Yeah.
What's he called?
Kenny something.
Yeah, Kenny Rogers will go with.
All right.
But yeah, and when he gets that bit of freedom, and he
Boone
gets
and Kenny Rogers.
But you get when the Elephant Man gets back, to the station. The way it's done is amazing, because it just starts off, you're thinking, all right, I'm back, cool, and then it's the music is quite subtle, but the pounding of trains going faster and faster and faster, like a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And the scene just gets more and more intense, and the music takes over, and it's just a fucking crescendo of horrible. And that scene when he just turns around and just says, I'm not. I'm a fucking human being. Leave me alone.
It does not say I'm a fucking human being.
I'm a fucking human being. You bunch of dings now. Fuck off.
But at that point, he's escaped from the carnival abroad, and he's got to travel all the way back to England.
Yeah.
Can you imagine his hopelessness and his terror of having to do that, knowing what people are like? And like, we get the lynch mob at the state. No pun intended, but the lynch mob at the station.
Yeah.
Who instantly they see somebody different. I mean, he's running across the bridge and there's a girl in front of him and he knocks her over just like an elephant stampeding.
Yeah.
And he knows that, and it's just the feelings that it's the empathy that gets you in this film. It's the imagining what somebody who's in that position, their entire life must have been fucking shit. All the way through.
No. And like I say, it's done so well, just with all the how it's cut, the pace of it, the sound, the backgrounds and all that. It just adds so much to the tension.
I think people also need it as a reflection piece. It should be watched as a piece of work in high schools and studied, because people at work, I said, watching Elephant Man again, I've not seen it for years, it's brilliant. Someone says, oh, well, that hospital he's with, they would have looked after him, wouldn't they? I said, no, there's no NHS. Unless you had money, you're fucked. Yeah. And I think a lot of people think it would have been for free. So what he had to do, I think, with the doctor was quite clever in a way. He needed people to see him to keep him there, to keep his health as well.
I mean, you see that in the committee scene where there's that guy arguing that we shouldn't be having people here. We shouldn't have incurables here. And I mean, the attitude of is it Carden, the Sir John Gielgud's character, and they're not interested in having an incurable there because it's just going to be a draining on the resources. But he doesn't even want to help him until he hears John Merrick reciting that 23rd Psalm.
Yeah,
and it's telling and it's damning in it as well that he would only help him because he thought that he wasn't going to help him if he thought he was an animal or thick or whatever. He would only help him because, oh man, he must be intelligent. And so it's quite bad that is the line drawn in the sand, that he would only help them when it's a human, when he can when he deigns to think of him as a human being. Yeah. Why can't he have that same feeling of wanting to help when it's somebody that would be other than intelligent in some way? An animal, perhaps. A struggling animal, would you just ignore it?
Exactly.
Sort of thing.
Depends what it was. If it was a chicken, they're just like plants, fuck them. If it was like a dog or something, then yeah, I'd help it.
Chickens are like plants.
Yeah, the chicken, boom, 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 boom. Plants with legs out.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, fucking thick as shit.
I think Sir John Gielgud's when...
Unbelievable.
I think Sir John Gielgud answers that question, that it only pick someone with intelligence. If not, they end up going to, obviously what they would consider the loony bin, a place most of the degenerates and the poor mentally ill people will end up there because either got no money at all or this problem with mental health. And I think at that, when Sir John Gielgud says, I hope he's thick, I hope he's something like that, because he knows that if he is, doesn't understand what's going on, then him going to that place, he wouldn't understand where he is anyway. So then it gets to wipe that, the invoice for the room, etc. off. But knowing he's intelligent as well, I think that's the only point what rises his own empathy, thinking, well, he can understand better than anything, which is the wrong way to look at it. But he's also looking at it as a business point of view, which hospitals was then as well.
Well, pretty much are nowadays, anyway.
Yeah, true.
There's a few moments in this film that are like proper tear jerker moments, and one of the first is that when he comes back to London after he's escaped, and he goes there, and the first thing the doctor does without any hesitation at all is hug him.
Yeah, you
can see that was one of the moments when I'm like filling up and oh good Jesus. But it is the theatre scene that does it for me. When he's, and you can see this as a Lynchian as well, because you know what David Lynch thinks about theatres and shows, and and the beauty of the theatre and what it can do for humanity, what it can do for like passing messages on. And that's where he finally gets, when everybody stands up and gives him applause.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Kendall, the actress played by Anne Bancroft, gives him a dedication, and he's like, and that makes it all the more when he goes back to his room at the hospital after that, and he knows at that point, he also knows that he is dying of pulmonary disease of some description. But that last scene when he's in his room and he's looking at the cathedral and it's already built and done, he doesn't have to do any more to his little toy cathedral thing. And, you know, he knows that this is the pinnacle, and he doesn't want, because he's experienced that, he doesn't want that eventual fall that is inevitable because humans are shit.
Yes.
He doesn't want that eventual thing. That's why he commits suicide.
What I did like was, as well, just when you said about Anthony Hopkins hugging him when he comes back without even thinking about it, was everyone's reaction of happiness that he was back, like the head nurse. They all got dressed up. You know, the nurse that freaked out at the beginning when she saw him, though she was there all dressed up, and how much they've grown to love him. They've got over this, you know, what he looks like. It doesn't matter. They see him as a person. And I think that was a lovely scene. Then you get into the theatre and it's like, wow. Yeah. But whatever, at least he sort of, sounds harsh, but at least he's, you know, died happy, really happy kind of thing, you know. It's a tragedy. It is. It's terribly sad.
But it is also uplifting as well, insofar as for when there are, for each boon, there is an Anthony Hopkins. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a beautiful part.
For each boon, there's a Kenny Rogers.
I find there's a beautiful, one of the first part was really got me like choked up was when he goes to meet Anthony Hopkins' wife. And there's a beautiful part where he's filling up because he says, "No beautiful woman has ever looked at me that way." Even though she's doing it for her husband. You can tell at first she's like a bit taken aback, but she holds it all in. And then he talks about his mother for the first time and brings out the picture. And I thought that was so heartbreaking.
Because what was he? She was only 4 months pregnant, wasn't she? His mother, when she got fucking. What happened?
I know. Well, it says that, but he didn't.
He didn't. He just got born normally. It's just, this is just the showman. This is Mr. Bites.
Oh, right. So this is
Mr.
the
Bites Fagan. This is his like showing.
Right.
Showmanship.
So, like,
yeah.
Right. Okay.
Not
he wasn't like raised by elephants or whatever.
No. Yeah, he was, Bob. Yeah, he was fucking raised by fucking elephants.
Like that little Aquila.
Raised by elephants and Dexter Fletcher. That's what he was done.
He's got a superpower. He can grow his trunk.
I tell you what, though, you know, like some big boils in his head. I'd fucking want to put. Why can't they just put, like, you know, when you get the massive spots?
That's not his skin. That's his bone.
That's his bone.
Look behind Sheps. That's his actual skull.
Oh, right. He's got a big head, hasn't he?
It's his bone. His bone was growing like that. Oh, it's just like would grow in weird ways. Yeah, and stuff.
I thought it was just like big lumps or whatever.
No. It wasn't his skin. It was literally his skeleton.
You can't do anything about that then.
No. Well, that's it. Yeah.
No, I was just coming up with an idea in case it happens again.
Well, he does ask the doctor as well, doesn't he? He goes, "Can you cure me?" And he says no. And he goes, I thought so. That's it. But I think at that point as well, he's like, well, at least he's keeping care of him, isn't he? This is what best I can do is help you.
Was it a real disease?
Yeah, elephantiasis.
Still now, yeah. Still now.
I've never seen anyone with it. I want to see. Is anyone...
You want to see? Here we go. Go on, Boone.
You'll find...
I'm just asking. I don't know anything about it.
You'll find a lot in probably third world countries now more than the Western side, due to the fact that we've had the drugs and vaccinations and the way pregnancies are handled and looked after.
Right. Okay.
But if it's a part of a gene, there's a 1980s film with Sharing, Mask.
She got it.
No.
Oh no, yeah, that film's just the same.
That's a very much similar vein of, even though this film's set in 1860, 1870, and then this is up to date of what happened to this guy. Was that elephantitis as well?
I don't think it was. He had some problem, but I think elephantitis is I don't know if that was called that because of this Elephant Man thing. I doubt it, but
yeah,
it's just a horrendous thing. But as they say, it's incurable, and it's like it doesn't have any. There's nothing about it that is helpful because we make first appearances, isn't it?
Yeah.
Your first impression you get of somebody, and if their first impression of you is absolute disgust and loathing and almost vomiting up.
Yeah.
There's like his entire all the human reactions of his life are just going to be like that, and you can understand where he's at mentally.
Yeah, but there's a good part. Bob, you brought up right from the beginning. Is we haven't changed.
No, we haven't.
It seems to go fucking worse.
We've got worse.
Fucking worse with Instagram, etc.
We haven't got worse. We're certainly a lot better than Victorian England in terms of this sort of thing. I mean, it still happens in a way.
Yeah.
But it's not got any worse. It still is as is, and it doesn't change because.
I think the difference is nowadays you've got all these people that will jump on any fucking bandwagon when anyone says anything. And they're making it worse by jumping on the bandwagon and shouting at people that have had a bit of a laugh at an Elephant Man or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're wrong, obviously, for doing that. But it's always two-sided. And everyone's just going at each other. Yeah. And that makes it bigger, if that makes sense. Makes it worse, puts more emphasis on it.
Yeah, I think there is companies that have tried to break certain barriers of allowing people with disabilities on TV. BBC's done it. There's a lady on CBBC with one arm, and the poor lady. I don't know if you read about it. It was only about 5 years ago because my son used to always watch it, and people was writing in to the BBC complaining to say that her disfigurement is wrong to put in front of children, and that's now.
No, but they've done that with
pathetic.
They did that recently with the same-sex couple on that Strictly Come Dancing or something. People were complaining about that. I don't want that on my television. Fuck off.
But the thing is,
just be nice, people.
The thing is now that it is on television now, and it's not done in a way to as a freak show. It is done because there's genuine. It's a lot better now than it is in Victorian times because there are an entire. The medical profession, for a start, is a lot more forgiving and understandable about these things.
Yeah.
And the people, there are always going to be arseholes in whatever stretch of life you're in.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more awareness that there is differences. People are different in all ways, and a disfigurement is not something that these days is anything. We do ogle because we're humans.
Yeah.
But we don't go and point and make, because we are also empathetic and understand. It's just that social media has sort of exacerbated how fast and how large this happens.
Yeah.
But it is exactly the same.
Well, we haven't
changed, but we have basic understanding of we shouldn't do that. Even the badly educated are pretty much, we know we shouldn't ogle, we shouldn't point, and we shouldn't and all that sort of stuff. But people still do. It's like
in one of the greatest TV shows of all time, in Cobra Kai. This little nerd lad that comes in, little nerd lad, he comes in with the hair lip. He's a right nerd and that, and everyone's bullying him and that, and he gets smacked or whatever. And then he's like, "Oh, you look like a weird lip and all that." So it's tick. Then he comes back with a fucking mohawk and looks badass. You know what I mean? And then everyone's like, "Oh, we'll call you Hawk now rather than Lip Boy."
I'll tell you what, fucking Bob misses the fucking point every time.
Well, what?
Brilliant.
No, I'm saying it's in Cobra Kai, so it's fucking ace, isn't it?
No, but there is better education now, so these things aren't as shocking to people, so we accept them now. I think, a little bit more.
Yeah,
but people are still assholes.
Yeah,
generally.
Most definitely.
Oh
yeah.
I tell you what though, if I was Elephant Man, like now or whatever, like the Stig or Mr. Blobby, you could make a career and make money doing that. Probably Mr. Blobby because of head size and that, because you won't get helmet on with your Stig.
Unbelievable.
What? No, I'm just saying. There's careers for elephant men.
Yes.
You can be Mr. Blobby, a football mascot.
There was a career for the Elephant Man in a freak show. What the fucking sort of argument is that?
Yeah, but that's not a freak show. He's Mr. Blobby's a pop star. He's an entertainer.
So now you're telling him to cover up completely and dance before you.
No, Edmonds, yeah. I'm just thinking out loud. How you get, what you can do. If medically you can't do out.
Fucking filter on your mouth, Bob, before you do think out loud.
Well, no, I'm just thinking, but like the Bobby suit or football mascot would be good because it could fit everything in there, can't it? Like his bones and that.
I'll tell you what, is the amount of Academy Award nominations it got.
8? Yeah.
Yeah, and it didn't fucking win one.
No.
Did it?
No.
That's someone as Fleming pissed off with Mel Brooks, or someone's pissed off with David Lynch. How could it not win one?
I thought John Hurt won something though for it, didn't he?
I think he might have won a BAFTA.
I could be wrong.
But he didn't win it. No Academy Awards was given to it.
I think it definitely lifted his career though. This didn't it?
Yeah.
Not saying relative, unknown, but it did lift his career.
It was relatively sided mainly on the United Kingdom. The stuff what he's done there. It was Quentin Crisp, of which David Lynch had watched, and he says, he wants John Hurt. But I think John Hurt's also been quite clever in the roles of which he accepts. You know what I mean? Throughout his career, he seems to look. He obviously has an agent to push him to get him to certain roles, but you can also see that John Hurt has gone out on a limb and tried something.
Yeah.
Where, like Quentin Crisp was one where apparently a lot of people said, "Do not do that," and then he did it, and then he came back and did a sequel back in I think it was early 2000, or Quentin Crisp, because it takes him of his life in New York and stuff. So he always willing to challenge different things. I think that's a testament to the actor of John Hurt. It's brilliant.
He's a proper acting legend, though, is John Hurt. He does. He's definitely up there in the class A of people who have acted, I think.
Yeah.
Like, you get people like Anne Bancroft in this film. Like, Anne Bancroft was a massive name back in that time.
Yeah.
She was very famous. Totally, that role that she did in, like, because there's nothing. I don't know whether it's because she was implying that because she's an actress, she could completely shield her apparent sort of. She doesn't react at all to his disfigurement in the slightest. She's kind. She gives him gifts. I don't think she's doing that because she wants to be seen as the socialite, because he was the trendy thing at that time, wasn't he? But she was doing that because she's a genuinely empathetic person. So you get genuinely empathetic people, you get genuinely cruel and opportunistic people. It's
I think
two sides of every dice, isn't it?
Yeah, it did help Anne Bancroft being married to Mel Brooks. So that's how he got her in. But you have the big name coming in. That, I think, made it easier for Mel Brooks to get people like Anthony Hopkins in. You know what I mean? And if he's putting the money up, you obviously got the studio, haven't you, who's going to distribute it. But I think a lot of the money being put up by Mel Brooks. If it wasn't for him, the film would have been completely different, because the studio would have demanded a tried and tested director, not someone who's just done an art house film in the midnight.
I think the fact that Brooks saw Eraserhead and was impressed and loved it, made him trust David Lynch to do what David Lynch thought right artistically, and I think Brooks was aware that it was better for the overall film if they didn't get involved.
Yeah.
No studio involvement at all means you get it's a mainstream film.
Yeah.
But it's got artistic sensibilities as well, which was quite a rare thing. And that's the crossover.
Especially the garish 80s. It's I think particularly that time.
Yeah, to come out with a black and white film as well. And apparently David Lynch spent so long trying to build the mask himself.
Badly, apparently.
You know what I mean? Yeah, but at least that's the type of thing we know and love of David Lynch. He loves to get hands-on with everything. Yeah. And a lot of the footage used for the Victorian streets was stock footage, of which he used from Pinewood and Studios and stuff like that. So he could use it in his films. So it was actual footage of the streets and actual footage of Victorian times.
He was saying that he was amazed when he went over to London to film, because all those Victorian type streets were there.
Yeah.
He didn't have to. He could film on kind of location in the right sort of places, and he made the point that soon after they were torn down and redevelopment, and the high rises all started to come in after that. So this is a kind of snapshot of like the last of the
very
Victorian seeming central London stuff. Yeah.
And sorry, go on.
You go, Sliff. You go.
And obviously he didn't use his Banglamenti did he? Because that was
No.
Blue Velvet was the first one. But
Yeah.
you could also see that Lynch had a big influence on the sound and the music within this as well.
Oh,
This-
he was credited.
It sounds
he was
like,
credited, wasn't he?
yeah, it sounds like you've not seen it yet though, but you'll watch Eraserhead. It does sound. It's got this very similar,
Yeah.
parts
Industrial
of the film.
sounds,
Industrial,
kind of ominous sort of atmospheric
thunder.
space.
Yeah,
The sound of he does really well. Does Lynch? Just the sound of space, like in a room. It's never totally silent because you are hearing echoes and your own heartbeats and things. So every time they're in a room, it's not totally silent. There's a sort of whooshing noise of that sort of thing.
Say, when you hear a silence, well, there is a silence in this one. I just when you guys were talking about it, then I just sort of made me pick up on it because I had to turn up it telly really loud in the bit when he comes back. When he comes back from being taken again.
Yeah.
And there's a dialogue scene, obviously with Anthony Hopkins and John Hurt, and because it's relatively quiet, the speech, in the mix or whatever.
Yeah.
If you turn it up, you get a hiss. Does that make sense? So you've got, and that was quite unusual, even having that little bit of noise there, because I don't think that was unintentional. But I think it harps back to the films of the 40s or 50s, which this looks like, and you had that sort of bit of buzz, on the microphone, because you didn't have noise gates and all this fancy stuff. I imagine that was probably intentional to sort of match the style that he was going for as well.
Well, the black and white perfectly, exhibits like it feels like Victorian London because of the black and white. I think a lot of it. Yeah. And when we see depictions of Victorian London that are done in colour, you do feel as though that you do feel slightly out of it there. But I think because it's black and white, and I mean I've got to admit, like when I first saw this film years and years ago, I didn't realise it was made in 1980. I thought it was being made in the 50s or something like that.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
And it's all the better for that. I think, and also it's just, as you say, it is a creative choice to do black and white because I think it won't have been to save money. It will have been because it perfectly depicts the light and the dark,
exactly,
every colour in between, every mix in between.
Yeah. It's a beautiful piece of work. So where would you? I know we don't really rank David Lynch films, but where would you put it on the ones what we've seen up to now?
I mean, it's the most accessible.
Yeah,
I think so far, because I think films like Mulholland Drive and Blue Velvet, they treat a lot of the there's fewer standard studio filmmaking tropes used in them.
Yeah.
Than in this one. This one is a little bit more traditional. And I think that's because he had other people doing the editing, he had other people doing all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And it wasn't written by him.
Yeah.
And because it wasn't written by him, although I think in the end he did a lot of the script because they had to do a lot of rewrites in order to get it done. I think that so he's got his parts in it, but essentially it's somebody else's work based off Dr. Treves' own not journals, but he did a book about recounting his times as a doctor in London, and this was an entire chapter. And what they did was take that chapter, script writers wrote a screenplay on it, and then David Lynch and the other people kind of made it into what it became in the end.
It is a beautiful piece of work, isn't it?
It's nice to watch.
It's nice. It has so much emotion into it as well, and you do walk away with tears in your eyes, but also a bit of satisfaction that he didn't die getting beaten up. He didn't die in another foreign land. He chose at that point, like John said, he felt the pinnacle. He was his happiness, and he was happy to die.
Yeah.
What do you think of the passing bit? The going into the dream sequence.
Well, it's not helped by the fact that there's Barbara's Adagio for strings playing.
Yeah. Which really touches
the
your
motherfucking most mournful, saddest piece of music ever.
Yeah.
And you do feel uplifted a little bit because you see the stars.
Yeah.
And you know that he just wants to lay down like a normal person, and he knows he can only do it once. And on that perfect night after the theatre, that was his time. Like, it doesn't get any better than this. I just want to do the normal thing. And he just, and seeing his mother's face, his kind of mother's face is the last image before it closes. And I do like that they ended the film right there as well, rather than people finding him in the morning. Because, I mean, look, when they made the prosthetics for this, they actually went to the University London Hospital, or whatever it was called, and they've got like you can see behind Sheps on the Skype that you've got the actual skeleton. They made a mold of it. They made a body cast of him when he died. They preserved his organs for like 50, 100 years until the bloody World War II, when they were destroyed in the Blitz. And like that, so it was after that perfect time, he was treated a little bit more like the oddity that he will have been. He was certainly a medical oddity for the times. And we don't get to see that, which is nice, because we leave that film feeling as though he's at his best time. Right. It's not ending in a bad way. It's ending in a super powerful way. Even though he's committed suicide, it's in a beautiful way. Yeah. And it's done in such a way that you understand and you can sympathise with his choice to do that at that perfect time in his life. And so it's an uplifting ending, surprisingly.
I once went to Newcastle University medical part, whatever. And it's the bit where the anatomy department or whatever, and they had like literally human bodies, chopped and put into whatever, from the liquid or whatever. And it's so weird. All these bodies cut up, made like whatever, they just don't look real. No. Sounds really daft. Like, you see all this stuff, Hollywood, how they portray things, but when you actually see it real life, like when they're doing this kind of thing, so weird. It just doesn't look real.
It's just meat in the end, isn't it? It's just meat.
But yeah, like even like brains chopped up, I mean, like stuff really dissected and put into these chemicals or whatever. It's really bizarre, because I was a bit nervous about going in. But when you went in, it just didn't feel real.
It's weird now, because like we're like conscious thinking humans, or at least me and Cliff are, and and the concept of like death is the concept of death is something that everybody always struggles to sort of like. It's an ending. We've got a mythology about it. We've got all these sorts of ways of thinking about it, but the end is something that nobody ever experiences ever. And because when they die, that's the end of it. So it's something that is always going to be mystical and slightly dislocated from our humanity. So we're aware it happens, but we still have no concept. Nobody alive. This is the oddest thing I'm ever going to say, but nobody alive has ever experienced death in other than a vicarious way on somebody else.
I think Dolph Lundgren playing Ivan Drago in Rocky IV sums it up best. If he dies, he dies. That's it. That's all he's to it.
Yeah.
He's cut. Russians cut it to
of all the quotes what has ever been since beginning of time to now, of all the philosophers,
Dolph Lundgren played Ivan Drago in Rocky IV.
Kenny Baker.
That was it. That was it. Little Kenny Rogers. Kenny Rogers and Moon.
Yeah, we see those that famous Siamese twin in the freak show in the end and it's also nice. The nice part about that is when he's clearly ill and he's been forced to perform in abroad in Europe. I think it's probably France.
Looks like France, yeah.
And he's clearly ill, but the guy's making him perform. And the punters spit at the Mr. Bites. Yeah. Because even like they're there to watch things, but there was still an extra level of cruelty that people weren't willing to accept. And think, I mean, it's all right to see that sort of stuff when you think it's an animal, in a way, but when it's a human, it's a different level. And this film just ramps everything up to the max emotionally.
It does. I mean, I was pleased just from, obviously, I don't know, what our fifth Lynch film, fifth we've done. And obviously they've all been quite similar. The ones I've done, obviously you did
Yeah.
Eraserhead before, you two. And I, like I said to you, I want to do something different. I want to see something different from it. And this is, it's obviously very different. But the main thing about it, it's a fucking classic. This, like,
Yeah.
you know, I'd put this in one of the most classic films I've ever seen. It just looks amazing.
Yeah.
The pacing's amazing. The soundscape's amazing. The actors are amazing. You know, and it's just done. It's just a fucking ace film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really like just.
I think
it's a great story and all that stuff. Like
with everything we've seen up to now, you know, being part of the Lynch Mob, and then you watch this one. If you hadn't been told it was David Lynch, you couldn't, and then get told after that was David Lynch, you'd be like, really? Was it? And then you think, oh, fucking hell. I can start seeing bits, connection. But it also shows, the pipes. He loves his pipes. Imagine he's just at home with loads of pipes, just sat there painting. Yeah. And,
but he sat on those pipes.
But I think it shows how great of a director he is. That he does different things. You know what I mean? Certain directors just fall into certain categories and they only do this or they only do that. And I think he was willing to try something different from his art house piece he did, Eraserhead. He did this piece. And then after that, he did June after this, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah.
But can you imagine that jump from a Victorian England 1940s, 50s style of film to doing a supernatural, just himself going, all right, I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
As a director, we don't like June because we didn't have the full control. I'm not sure what it would have been like if it was, but he's diverse so much in his work.
It's the visuals for me. He just captures everything beautifully, and he combines that with tension, sound, script, pacing, all them things going on. Even at a young age, he was only just 30 or something, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So and it was like it was his first proper film.
Yeah.
With proper people and all that, and he fucking smashes it. Like he really nails it.
It's beautifully shot. I think a lot of it is just like artfully crafted scenes, and I think he excels in that. I think he used this film to exercise his, or at least perfect his own directorial style that he goes on to use to greater extent, or to a more impressive extent in stuff like Mulholland Drive, where he knows now how to frame a scene in a way that is acceptable. I mean, he does that in Eraserhead as well, but this is one of the times when he's worked with stars. He's worked with people that aren't his own. He's had other people contributing to the actual the crew of the film. Is not all under his control, and yet he made it his own. And I'm going to say it again. It's inimitably David Lynch, and and all the better for it. And I think this is one of his. It should have won Academy Awards, and you can tell that you don't get nominated for these awards if it is shit.
Yeah,
and this is a modern classic of a movie, and it's one that everybody will have heard of.
Yeah,
even though it's not, even though you can't have seen it, and it is a film that people should watch because it says a lot about humans, humanity. It says a lot about the morality of things. It says a lot about alienation and like the way people should act with other people and the right and the wrong ways that this happens. Yeah. And it also says that this is the way humans are, and it's not cautionary in any way. It just says this is how humans are, and you have to accept that there is good as well as bad, there is light as well as dark.
Definitely.
I was just gonna. For me, it was the shots. So when you were saying about the shots, John, and I was just thinking about the recreation of this 1940s, 50s vibe. Static shots with zoom-ins.
Yeah.
Static shots. It was like, because it used to be, film like the theatre. Yeah. They'd have 4 or 5 cameras or whatever. Or as a guy in the director box, interchanging between cameras and this slow, zoom, if you like.
Yeah.
But that changed in parts. For example, when he was running away in the train station, Then you got handheld camera and it got a bit more shaky and tense, which I think, just thinking about this now, that's why that scene was so fucking tense, because you'd lost this static sort of camera-ness.
Yeah.
Which is again why it doesn't look like it was made in the 1980s. Not in a bad way.
No.
But yeah, just stuff like that's dead clever. He's thought about directing it like how they would have done it back then, if you see what I mean.
Most definitely. I think
Clever fucker, isn't he?
Yeah, very clever. We're going to give a last round up, but I must say, like what John says, you can see that he tried things out and he perfected it as he moved along. Those static shots, like you just said, he uses that in Blue Velvet. That whole scene of the lady's flat is like a set piece, isn't it? Yeah. You can see it's been moved around and there's a lot of zoom shots in there. And then he perfects it as he goes on. And he does it all the time in Twin Peaks. The whole of Twin Peaks, more or less, every time he goes onto a soundstage of the TV show, of which it is.
It makes you feel as though it's your observer rather than... A lot of films, modern style, is to make you feel like you're a participant in the scene rather than just observing it. And I think that dislocation between being an observer and being a participant is key to the way Lynch wants you to watch his stuff.
Yeah.
I am not an animal. I am a human being.
So I think we come to the end of yet another Lynch Mob. Right, so we've done a few up to now, and I think, like Bob said, we're on our 5th or 4th, but we're about halfway there now of his movies.
Yeah.
Which is a shame to think, really, that. And it's a good job we don't really do these every week, because we need time to look into it, really. And I want to stretch them out, to be honest, because it's like...
Well, to be honest, I always think I need a bit more time, because there's a bit more and a bit more. Even with Elephant Man, there's a bit more.
Yeah.
A bit more in the layers. And I want to watch stuff about the production and what went into it. And how David Lynch was making his first proper film. I'm fascinated by it. He fascinates me, David Lynch. He's a brilliant man as well.
Do you know what? Have you been watching his YouTube series, Today's Number?
Yeah.
I've seen
that's
bits.
Just fucking perfect, Lynch, and I'm sure it's dodgy. He's deliberately not picking a 7 for some reason. He's deliberate, but I love that sort of stuff. Every little thing he does has got a little lesson to it, and I think Elephant Man's lesson is a little bit more deeper than his Today's Number, but it's Lynch at his best.
That short on Netflix that just come out, what did Jack do when he's talking to that monkey?
That's great.
Monkey. Fucking mint. It's just mental, but it's fucking mint.
But I do love seeing David Lynch acting. I do love it.
Yeah, he's
acting,
great.
Yeah.
I think he's brilliant in the acting. I'm not sure if he's done any acting in other people's movies. Does anyone know?
I don't think he has.
He just likes to participate.
Check IMDb, Chris.
That's an IMDb, That's an IMDb.
Before you come to the podcast, check IMDb with that question.
Yeah, bloody hell. I'll let myself down there.
He does play himself, though, or exaggerations of himself. And that's cool, because he's fucking nice.
Yeah. And what film do you reckon we're going to watch next?
We should delve back into proper Lynch and do Wild at Heart or something.
Yeah.
Wild at Heart. Yeah, that would be a good one. The one he did straight after June. No, it wasn't. Straight after Blue Velvet, wasn't it? That was it.
McLaughlin in it.
Nicolas Cage, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is. Yeah.
Nicolas Cage, yeah. And Laura Dern.
Yeah. We'll save Straight Story for Arrest.
Yeah.
Again, like Elephant Man was.
Yeah.
Wild at Heart next time.
So Wild at Heart listeners will be watching, and you'll be listening hopefully to us and watching us on YouTube. Don't forget to watch us. Press that fucking button that says subscribe and do all the jizz.
There we go.
Just jizz over it. And what? Classy, mank. So tune in again, and we'll be doing Wild at Heart. Thank you very much, Bob. Thank you very much, John.
Lynched.
Cheers and goodbye. Lynched.
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 Lynched.